When the Iowa poll came out, when Ann Seltzer's Iowa poll came out, I think people thought, like, if that's the kind of race that we're looking at here, if Iowa is potentially in play for the Democratic presidential candidate, then a state like Kansas could be too. A state like Ohio could be too. It looks like, again, we are in a realm of no surprises here, which is where we've been all night. Which is where David Plouffe's at, right where Jen Psaki is sitting. And I think we asked about some of these other states, and he shut it down and said no, 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 no. And they are waiting for what you just mentioned. I mean, they're watching the blue wall, and they're watching it not anxiously yet. That would be too strong, but eagerly, if you will. I mean, right, let's just be blunt about this. If, say, and these are not calls, but let's say Trump wins Georgia and North Carolina. Let's say he also wins Nevada and Arizona. If Kamala Harris wins Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, she gets 270, she wins the presidency. And so when we are talking about this being a tight race, it isn't just a tight race in each of these individual swing states. It's a tight race, it's a tight race, it's a tight race, even once we start to get first swing state calls, none of which have been called.
And by the way, that is the old-fashioned way, right? I mean, before Georgia sort of shocked the world in 2020, the old-fashioned way that Democrats always won was the blue wall. It was that Donald Trump broke and shattered the blue wall in 2016 that threw everybody's brains, you know, off kilter. And so everyone is sort of waiting on states. You know, yeah, waiting on Florida is a waste of time. Like, it's a red state now, and we understand that. But I think the old-fashioned way of doing it, plus that Nebraska special district that's the one little blue dot, I mean, that is the way, the old-fashioned way Democrats won elections. And I can tell you the one place that at least the folks I'm talking to in the campaign are looking outside of the blue wall and paying really close attention to it, and they'll be watching whatever Steve Kornacki does, is the Georgia suburbs, because that is where they're seeing overperformance for Vice President Harris, is in the suburbs of Georgia. And if she overperforms Biden in 2020 in the Georgia suburbs, that is where they see the one place to do sort of a reach state. Because again, Georgia's a reach state. I know it's now got 2 Democratic senators, but it's still a reach state for presidential.
Let me interject. I don't have a call to make here, but we have a change in characterization in a couple of very important states. In the Pennsylvania presidential race, the previous characterization of this race had been too early to call. It is now too close to call in Pennsylvania. Similarly, in the Wisconsin presidential race, this had previously been too early to call. In Wisconsin, it is now too close to call. We can also change our characterization in a couple of Senate races. Let's look first at the Wisconsin Senate race. Again, this is Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin facing Republican challenger Eric Hovde. This had previously been described, this Wisconsin Senate race, as too early to call. It is now too close to call in the Wisconsin Senate race. Also, in the Pennsylvania Senate race, we've got a similar shift. This is incumbent Democrat Bob Casey. He holds this Senate seat in Pennsylvania right now. His challenger is Republican Dave McCormick. I think I said Republican Bob Casey. Democrat Bob Casey. This was previously too early to call. It is now too close to call in the Pennsylvania Senate race. We also have an additional change in characterization. This goes back to the presidential level. This is in Michigan. In Michigan, the presidential race had previously been too early to call. It is now too close to call in the state of Michigan. Also, let's take a look at Michigan Senate. A similar pattern. In the Michigan Senate race, again, here we have got a Democrat versus a Republican. This is an open seat in Michigan. Democrat is Alyssa Slotkin. Republican is Mike Rogers. This had previously been too early to call. It is now too close to call. So just recapping here, in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan, all of the calls in those 3 states now have moved from too early to too close. That is true both for the presidential race and all 3 of those battlegrounds. It is also true for the Senate races in all 3 of those battlegrounds. I'm going to go back to Steve in just a second. Jen Psaki, I understand you've been getting some intel on Nevada.
Well, Nevada, I think, is a very interesting state to look at for a range of reasons, one of which the majority of voters there don't have a college degree. It's a very diverse state. But one of the things I've been hearing a lot from Democrats over the past couple of days is about the nonpartisans that reporter was talking about. There's been a huge surge of vote registration as nonpartisans since 2020. But in 2022, the nonpartisans, that was the closest Senate race in the country. We all remember Jackie Rosen won that seat. She won the nonpartisans. by single digits, but she still won the nonpartisans. So yes, you don't exactly know how they're going to vote, but they look at 2022 as a good sign. And that is a sign. That is a state also, I will say, it was so far from being won by the Democrats before there was a change at the top of the ticket.
That's
I mean,
right.
the internal polling numbers there were devastating. That has massively changed. The Senate race there, we don't know what will happen, has massively changed. So that's an interesting race to watch for me. And I think the nonpartisans, there's reason why the Democrats feel good about the nonpartisans.
Let me interject here. We've got a new call. We've got a projection in the presidential race in Kansas. NBC News can now project that the winner of the presidential race in Kansas is Donald Trump. We're heading towards a 10 p.m. poll closing in Nevada, Utah, Montana. As we head toward those, we're keeping an eye on lots of different battleground states. Claire McCaskill, I'm bringing you in here because I understand you've maybe got some intel out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've talked to folks on the ground that have been running these Senate campaigns, namely in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and they all feel good about those Senate races. The only two out there that everyone is still biting their fingernails over are John Tester in Montana, who has to overcome a huge Trump margin in Montana, and Sherrod Brown. We don't know at this point what kind of margin he has to overcome for Trump. We don't know what the final margin will be. I know we've called it for Trump, Ohio, but the rest of them, everybody's feeling really good about. And I'll tell you one other thing that people are feeling really good about, Rachel, and that is what they're seeing on college campuses. This is going to be big in Pennsylvania. It's going to be big in Michigan. It's going to be big in Wisconsin. And everybody needs to take a deep breath. Those are the three states we need. We don't have to have Georgia. Don't have to have North Carolina. We have to have those three. And they have been surprised. The campaign has been surprised by the level of involvement on these college campuses today on Election Day. They weren't expecting such long lines that actually is requiring in some of these locations that they keep them open longer.
Claire, thank you for that. Much appreciated. It is, of course, like our fate as actors in this Shakespearean drama that you've got to have these swing states that are absolutely, unbelievably crucial to the outcome of the presidential race, and they also have incredibly tight-fought Senate races at a time when Senate control is going to be very, very important. Let's pass it back over to Steve. Steve, I see you've got Pennsylvania up there on your board now. What are you watching coming in?
Yeah, and again, it's kind of coming in incrementally. So a lot of these counties, as I said, there's this big division between the vote by mail and the same day, and it's kind of unclear in a lot of these counties. We just don't have enough to say. But one county where we're getting real close, and I think is going to be a very big indicator here, we've talked about this, is Lackawanna County, where Scranton is, and now 90% of the vote is in. And we were looking at this a few minutes ago, and we were saying again that we expected Trump to close, to cut into the lead that Harris had. It was at about 6.5, 7 before. Now with 90%, and you can see he's cut it a little bit. It's down to 5 points. And remember what we're looking for in Lackawanna County. There's two very different ways this has played out in the last two elections. In 2016, Donald Trump got close to only about 3 points behind here. He won the state of Pennsylvania. In 2020, Democrats with Joe Biden came in and won this by more than 8 points. Biden won the state. So we were saying at the start of the night, Trump wants this number. Democrats want that number. Right now, it's sitting right in between them. It's sitting at 5. So there's still some same day to come in. Let's see this remaining 10%, what that does to this margin. Again, the same day seems to be favoring Trump. How much is it going to favor Trump? Is it going to bring it down back to this level completely? Is it going to stabilize? But that's the most complete county we have in Pennsylvania right now. And I think we said at the start of the night, it's a very key one, because this region where Scranton is, where Lackawanna County is, this is very contested political terrain. I could just show you some of the other counties here. Luzerne County, this is where Wilkes-Barre is. This is also where the city of Hazleton is. Hazleton is a majority Hispanic city. Donald Trump actually won Hazleton in 2020. Again, Trump campaign thinks it can make more gains with Hispanic voters. If they do, you'll see it here. About half the vote is in Luzerne County. And again, the same day is what's still to come here. So Trump's leading by 8 points now. He won this county by more than 14 in 2020. Question for the Trump campaign wants to get over that number. They want to improve on that number here. If the Democrats can stop them from doing that, that's a big development for Democrats. We want to go back and look at Georgia because, again, and Joy was just talking about this, the suburban support for Democrats in this Atlanta metro area. Something interesting is happening. There are some suburban counties here. You call them kind of the emerging suburbs of the Atlanta metro area, where the growth is the fastest and the diversification is the most dramatic. And that is definitely where Harris is posting improvements tonight. I think we showed you Douglas County a few minutes ago. Again, rapid growth here. It's about half black. And you can see in 2020, 25 points. Tonight, Harris is winning this by 32 points. You see it in Rockdale County. Just about all of the vote is in here. Biden got 70%. Harris has pushed that up to 73. This is a majority black county. You can go to Newton County here. You know, this was the tightest margin of all these Atlanta metro counties. This was the tightest margin for a county that Democrats won. Almost all in 2020, almost all the vote is in. Harris has improved on it. You see this. You could take a look at Henry County. Almost 80% of the vote is in. Again, Biden won it by 20. Look at that. That's up to 30 or so for Kamala Harris. So the thing is, though, the counties I just showed you within this Atlanta metro region, relatively speaking, these are the lesser populated counties. The ones with the huge, the huge populations. You start with Fulton County, and we've been monitoring this. This is the biggest. Atlanta's here, but there's also a lot of suburbs within Fulton County. This is key for Democrats because of the sheer size of Fulton County. A drop of a couple points here would more than offset the gains that I just showed you in those other counties. 80% counted in Fulton County, and now you see Biden 72.6 in 2020. Harris has fallen a tick below that. Meanwhile, Trump 26.2 here in 2020 is a tick above his 2020 number. The concerning thing for Democrats here in massive Fulton County is with only 80% counted, there is still a significant, obviously, amount of same-day vote to come in. And you just saw, if you were watching earlier, this has gotten a little bit tighter. The Democrats have dropped a little bit since the last time we looked at this. That's because more same-day came in, and Harris fell below that Biden number. There's room for her to drop further here. And again, you know, just 1-2 points in Fulton County offsets a lot of the good Democrats might have done themselves in those other counties I just showed you. So see what happens there. We also have, look at this, Douglas, Cobb County. We also have, look at this, getting close in Cobb County again. Take a look at 2020 here. Joe Biden won this by 14 points. Now, right now, it's basically a 15-point margin. This is another one where that margin for Democrats was bigger earlier. It's come down as more same day has come in. And you know, Cobb is a massive, massive county. Again, it's much bigger than any of those others that I just showed you. 82%, more same day to come. That's concerning for Democrats if it starts dropping below that. And then Gwinnett County, this is the one that's been the slow one here in the region tonight. We're still where we were. So there's sort of a division here we're seeing between these suburban and metro counties here. Again, there's some clear Democratic growth, but they don't want slippage in those big ones as the remaining vote comes in. And again, just checking in, we showed you Cherokee. These are the big Republican sort of fringe Atlanta metro counties. Here's one, Forsyth County, where Trump is clearly has improved, I should say, a bit from 2020, a point higher than 2020. You can go over to Paulding County, though. This is interesting. Again, core Republican area, fast-growing. Dallas, Georgia is here. 29 points for Trump last time around, down to 24. So, again, that's a feather in the Democrats' cap right there in Paulding County, bringing that Trump number down further. And finally, we close out on this. We're basically done in Fayette County. We ID'd this one at the start of the night as, look, if Democrats were actually flipping this, they are definitely having a good night in Georgia. Looks like they're going to come short. Harris has made progress here in his big suburban county here. Harris has made progress from 7 points, now sitting at 3 points. But is that progress enough for Democrats?
Fascinating and so down to the wire. All right, we are coming.